Hey, I'm Kamara Rose, and this is Everyday Changemakers. Conversations with social change practitioners about the journey of personal transformation and social transformation.
And seeing the climate and seeing what's happening in the world just every day and realizing how important it is to take care of yourself. Because once you become resilient, you're able to understand how you can move forward and how you get pulled back, what kind of tools I can help myself to rise up again. Yoga means to yoke, to unite, to bring together.
This week, I'm talking with Elisha Fernandes Simpson, the founder and executive director of the Crossover Yoga Project, which partners with juvenile detention centers, youth residential treatment centers, and social service agencies to give young people, especially girls, access to tools of yoga, mindfulness, and expressive arts. I met with Elisha in Yonkers, New York, where she had just finished leading a yoga class for a group of young people called the Bravehearts, kids who have aged out of the system.
They've gone through a lot of the foster care and the juvenile justice system, and they've seen the ups and downs of it. But what happens at 18, you get cut off, and you don't have any more benefits, any places to stay. You really don't have any guidance or any type of housing or anything, and whatever you've learned, hopefully you could take with you. Some of those kids don't do that, and what happens to most of them is that they end up in the streets. They end up homeless. Some of them go back to school, some of them don't. Some of them have families, some of them don't. So once a month I come and donate a yoga class to whoever's interested. And they've really grown quite a bit, just seeing from the first part when they're all very, very hesitant and would walk out to this point where they all come together and they're actually waiting for me to come, and they really enjoy it. And they use the skills. I've noticed that a lot of them that have started to learn how to breathe, started to learn how to manage some of their emotions and not get so stressed. They've learned from yoga and they take it to other people.
With Crossover Yoga, Elisha brings her background in social work and her expertise in trauma to empower young people to understand how their past affects their present reality.
Giving them that strength to go out there and face every day because they don't want to sometimes. Mm-hmm. So it's giving them this opportunity to free up all those things that have kind of held them down throughout their whole lives. I teach people what goes on in their brain after they've been impacted by trauma. So what we've learned through research and a lot of studies is that when you're growing up and you have really adverse situations, be it abuse, be it watching abuse, be it around violence or just unstable situations when you don't know you're going to eat or something the next day, your brain is, instead of learning how to grow and nurture and thrive, is trying to protect itself. So when it starts to protect itself, it's always looking for danger because it doesn't know how to self-soothe. It doesn't know how to calm down. When you get stuck or traumatized, usually what happens is you stay in that space, in that time frame, and it's hard for you to realize that right now, like for example, I'm with you right now and sitting in a room and we're talking. They won't know they're here. They might be pulled back somewhere else.
Elisha says that yoga helps her students find ways to become present and more aware of their behavior so they can make new choices and realize their dreams. But she didn't know that this would be her path. When Elisha first started doing yoga, it was just for fun. Then she really got into it seriously when she was in graduate school.
But it was a way for me to find a way to find myself because I was in graduate school. I didn't know what I was doing. I was scared. I was across the United States. I was in Arizona. All my family was in Massachusetts. So it gave me that connection. It helped me move forward. And then from there over time, as I've practiced for almost 20 years, I've realized how it shifts me, how I really have to do it every single day to help me feel centered, to help me be able to communicate with others. And it's taught me so much about myself.
As Elisha has taught yoga, it's always mirrored the stages of her own life, from working with pregnant mothers and infants to families and kids. Now, as she works with young women, she sees that once again, her teaching is mirroring her life.
The reason I'm doing this work and the reason I work with these kids who've been sexually trafficked or have been abused or something is because when I was younger, I was molested and I didn't have anyone to turn to. Not until I turned 32 did I realize that I could reach out to somebody. And when I did, that support wasn't still there. So I'm going to give it to others. Every moment that I can sit and talk to someone and be there for them and help them understand it's not you and this is why, it's really powerful. Actually, just last night, I had one girl, her name's Aaliyah, and she finished the class and she was kind of huddled up. We did an exercise about finding how many ways you're beautiful. And at the end of class, she said, I said, "You okay?" And she goes, "No, I feel like there's a bunch of demons inside of me." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "Well, when I was little, my mom used to always tell me how I was ugly and that I was a slut and I was mean and I was no good. And so at that moment, I had that opportunity to tell her that she's beautiful, that she's smart, and explain to her, when you're a baby, you're seeking someone to protect you and care for you. And when someone who you think is that person doesn't do it, your brain starts to form around that and you think it's real. You now have an opportunity to undo that because that's not true." And she got it. And that's the beautiful thing. Like if I had that when I think she's 16 years old. But to have somebody turn that switch on for you when you're so young so you can still change things, I think is so important. So that's, that was something that just really made me feel good, that you can be there for these kids and helps me heal.
When you were speaking, it reminded me of the wounded healer. The idea is that people who are wounded in any kind of way can become incredible healers, usually in the same place that they themselves were wounded. And then you're called to show up and to be healing with others in that same way. But you can't do that kind of work in society if you haven't healed those wounds, whatever they might be. And if you're not aware of them, you can even inflict more harm.
Yes, which is unfortunate because we all want to do good. I love this all the time. It's becoming more and more relevant in my life and more people are saying it. But when you get on the plane and they tell you to put the oxygen mask on you first before you help others, you've got to heal yourself first.
Hey everyone, I'm pausing the conversation here because I wonder if you identify with the wounded healer. Maybe you've been in a position to use your own wounds to offer healing to others, or you've been helped by others who had similar wounds to your own. If you're interested, I developed a wounded healer reflection tool to help you look back on where you've been a healer for others and to help you look forward to see how you may be able to serve as a healer to more people in the future. You can download the Wounded Healer Reflection Guide for free at kamararose.com/resources. The link is also in the show notes. Use the guide to connect more deeply with your own wounded healer experiences and to inspire you to continue on in your own healing journey. So download the guide at kamararose.com/resources and let me know what you discover. Okay, back to the conversation.
What are the things in terms of your own evolution and the ways that you're devoted to your own practices right now? What are you finding is most beneficial or nourishing for you?
It used to be a lot of physical practice, but now I'm realizing it's the breathing. As I've changed with my, as I grow older and older, I've noticed the difference in the practices that I need and how I have to approach them and how my day has to be and the meditation that I incorporate in my life. My body needs more of the breath work. My body needs more of meditation right now. And before it was hardcore physical practice as much as I could do. So it's interesting to see, how your body definitely knows what it needs, and you just have to listen to it, which is another thing too. I didn't used to listen to my body. I used to just do. And now I just sit back and say, okay, I'm going to hold back and listen to it.
How do you listen?
You just notice what your body is saying. So sometimes, for example, it's just you get restless at night. You roll all around, you throw the sheets around. So instead of doing that, I just sit and try to breathe slower and just really try to ask myself, why am I awake like this? What's on my mind? Really, what's happening inside? And start to question it, and then I can realize, oh, it's because I didn't get X, Y, and Z done today. Oh, it's because I didn't get to connect with my daughter today. Oh, so you find those little things of what it is, and that helps me come at ease. So it's really about asking questions, and then also finding ways to tell yourself it's okay. And that's the hardest thing, is to become more compassionate and empathetic with yourself, and really talk to yourself as you talk to one of your closest friends. Tell yourself it's okay, comfort yourself, and just breathe and take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of being restless that night, the other night I couldn't sleep. And like you're describing, I had to isolate. What's the thing that I'm thinking about? Mm-hmm. And then just really had to realize, is there anything I can do about this thing
Mm-hmm.
right now?
Right.
No, I can do nothing about it right now. Therefore, mm-hmm. I have to surrender. And somehow just knowing that, like you said, it gave me that ease in the moment and the comfort of, mm-hmm. I have to let it go.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. It's really letting go. And it's the hardest part.
Will you describe breath work just in case people don't know what that is?
Sure. So we want to do something? It's a little exercise?
Sure.
Yeah. So breath work is really just finding different ways and noticing how you're breathing.
Okay. Here is where Elisha leads me through a short breathwork session. And since you might be driving or otherwise occupied, I saved it for you at kamararose.com/resources. As always, the link is in the show notes. It's 5 minutes long and definitely worth checking out. Breathwork has many different forms, but the technique Elisha leads here is simple. It's the practice of letting your exhale breath be slightly longer than your inhale breath. So when you can, go to kamararose.com/resources to download the Breathwork guided session and try it yourself, because it's a great technique to have in your back pocket.
That was cool.
So that's something I use. I use that a lot with people I work with because it helps give them a sense of where they are. It helps them realize that they don't have to be always up in the air a lot, that they can kind of focus and come back down. How was it for you?
It was good. I mean, it feels like meditation, but I like it because it basically makes meditating easier.
Yeah.
Because meditating is always focus on the breath, but I just get distracted.
Yeah.
But because this requires a more intentional focus on the breath, it's like you're inadvertently meditating.
Yeah. As you're focusing on the counting. Sometimes people need to focus on something, counting words. There's so many different ways to meditate. And sometimes instead of just sitting and breathing, it's easier to find something. Numbers, walking, moving your fingers. There's so many different ways you can do that. Practices like that is things that I offer to help the kids, and they really enjoy it and take it with them because it's theirs. Nobody has to tell them to do it. They know when they can use it, and that's what's really empowering. And once they realize it works, they tell their friends, do this. So it spreads that way naturally.
On top of the breath work, what are the other specific things that you do with the kids that you might describe for us?
We do meditation. And a lot of the meditation are things like I was saying, like a walking meditation. Sometimes they press their fingers together, like a thumb to an index, thumb to middle finger, thumb to third finger, and thumb to fourth finger. And they'll say something to themselves that's positive. I am so strong. I am amazing. We do yoga postures. We move. And when we do the movement, I try to synchronize breath with it, with their movement, so they can still have that quality of trying to find ways to calm themselves down. And then after that, we do artwork, which helps them, because sometimes when we do all this stuff, you get a lot of thoughts that come up, but you don't know how to express them because we don't always have words, especially when you're traumatized, because that prefrontal cortex, the front part of your brain, shuts off during trauma. And everything lives inside the back of your brain, the primitive brain, which kind of stores as images and sounds and smells, but not those words. The story kind of gets jumbled. So when you give somebody some type of vehicle, like an art project, like creating a journal out of scrapbook pieces, like forming something out of clay, painting, you're giving them this opportunity to express what's come up, even though they don't have to say anything. So it's a beautiful thing. And then we talk about it and try to close always with something positive. Always try to close with something we call an affirmation circle. And we go around and everyone finds something positive about themselves, and then everyone else in the circle calls it back to them to enforce that and show that, you know, you're finding your good quality about yourself, and we're here to support you and bring you together.
What have you witnessed? What are some of the really powerful moments that you've witnessed in doing this work with young people?
How inspiring they are is really just overall in general is how inspiring they are. Because of everything that they've seen and everything they've gone through, they still get up every day and they still face what they have to face. So that's a big thing. There was another girl who I worked with long ago, come to class, put the blanket over her head, always sit next to me in class, but would never say anything and just tell me to leave her alone. And after 10 sessions, she came to me and said, I want to thank you for these classes, because now I don't go out at night and try to walk the streets to get money. I can sleep. It's really amazing. I mean, seeing kids, even sometimes I work with boys, and just seeing them look back at me and say, you know, I want to come again next week. When they're the ones that are jumping around and doing the push-ups the minute they walk in, but they're the ones that are also asleep at the end of class, because they know, they feel safe. They feel safe that I can fall asleep. They feel safe that it's okay to be here. And it's just really powerful.
Hey everyone. I'm pausing the conversation here because I actually worked with Elisha last year to document a story from a young woman named Arianna who attended classes with Elisha in a residential treatment center. To further illustrate the impact Elisha is describing, I'm going to play a clip of Arianna's story here. And if you want, you can watch the short video at kamararose.com/media projects. As always, the link is also in the show notes. So here's Arianna.
In my town, in high school, everybody thought I was just a failure. If I got fed up, I would just walk out of class. I just always thought people thought that I was just the dumb one, or the one that's not gonna make it. Yoga taught me that you can always fall down, but you could always get back up at the same time. And sometimes you have people to help you to get back up, and sometimes you don't. Or sometimes you knock everybody over when you do it. But at the end, you always get up strong and start over. You're breaking free. I see a girl with a lot of potential. I think I'm beautiful, smart, confident, educated, and I just feel like I'm gonna make it. I have a great talent and I don't want to put it to waste.
And do you think about some of the positive ripples of the work that you're doing, or have you seen them? Because here you are working with young people who are largely have had some sort of contact with the state system, whether through foster care, criminal justice. So, I mean, what's your hope of how they are changed, but also how the system itself might change?
So at the Mann Center, the director and the clinical director have told me how their culture of the whole organization has changed since I started going there 3 years ago, which I didn't really realize, but the staff And the girls, they actually look forward to Mondays is when I show up. So they can see and they can feel the lightness of the room. There's less fights that day. There's less aggression. It's just kind of like, oh, today's the day that this is happening. So I know it's working. It's just, it takes time.
I love that example of how the Man Center, which is a
residential treatment center.
It's a residential treatment center. And that the culture, like the staff and the people who are serving the young women that are in that center, that they're changing. Is there more that you can describe in terms of like the way that the staff might be different?
So most of the staff, the way that they connect with the kids is using kind of more of a familiar way of talking with each other, joking with each other, making fun of the kids, not really being that supportive adult that's a role model, showing them the positive way of doing things. Now they're different. So instead of just cutting them down and putting them into a different box, they use their language instead, which is a really, really, really important because they're the kids are around these staff 24/7. And if they come in tired and they come in not really wanting to do the work, the kids feel it and it gets bad. So now they're learning how to vocalize themselves when they come in. If they're working too much, they explain to the kids, I'm working too much, so I'm sorry if I'm feeling a little off today. So they're, a lot of different things are changing, and they're doing more self-care for themselves too. So they're taking care of themselves, taking a moment aside. So when they know that, they're burnt out and they can't deal with one kid that's fighting right now, they'll ask their coworker, you know what, can you just take this for a minute? I need to step away. So they're doing this. So that's a big step for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's huge. It's huge because if you're thinking that these are adults that are taking care of minors in a system and shifting from being negative and potentially harmful to the kids to being able to show up positively and as a more caretaking adult is huge because we know how much abuse happens even inside these systems.
Yeah, it's a big difference.
Hey everyone, we're taking our last break here to let you know about our guest next week, Lisa Asario Pratt, co-founder and minister at New Day Church in the Bronx, New York.
So in order for us to create the new world that we dream of, all of our imaginations are required at the table. And the first step is to just start practicing using your imagination, really dreaming, daydreaming the kind of world that you want to live in, a kind of world that includes you, that includes your voice, that includes your decision making. And we need to be doing that together.
Listen next week to hear about Lisa's personal journey to ministry and how she actively creates community spaces to dream, envision, and become the new world. Okay, back to the conversation.
Coming back out to this larger view of our social system and making the changes that we need to make in our society. I mean, what would be the hope coming from your informed practice of what people like Changemakers would be doing or bringing into their work?
We have a lot of work to do as Changemakers. The only big thing that I would really, really hope for is with all the work that we're doing and all the blood, sweat, and tears that we put into it, is that we remember to take care of ourselves, because we can't make that change unless we're taking care of ourselves. No matter how many different, avenues that I'm going into in different directions all the time, if I'm not getting my night's sleep, if I'm not eating the right foods, it's not going to work. So, it'll take longer, and a lot of the efforts might not be the best ones for us.
And is there one practice that you would recommend? Is it the breathwork, or what would you recommend for those change makers that need to take care of themselves?
There's so many different things for people to do. One thing which I love the most is having a notebook by your bed and a pen And when you wake up in the morning, the first thing that you do is you take that pen and paper and you write down 3 great things about yourself. Or maybe 3 goals that you have for that day or that moment. And then you repeat them to yourself. And then you breathe for like a minute. And then you really take those in and you believe them. And then you get out of bed. And then you let your day go that way. Seeing what it's like to start off on something positive might change the way you look at the rest of the day.
Beautiful. Well, speaking of intentions, in closing, is there an intention that you want to speak that's about your hope for your work, what your work creates in the world, and just your bigger hope for change?
It's a big question, Kamara. The intention that I have for everyone is to really find who you truly are and let that be your guide. Not to let other things drive you. And to let that be what feeds you, what nourishes you, what acts as your resource when you move forward. And to take practices of self-care and to take everything that you need, because it's not selfish. It's just going to help you be a better person and help you bring those people and the things that you need to be in your circle and to be in your life and to help you move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Thanks for inviting me. This is exciting. I'm very excited for you.
Thank you all so much for listening. As a reminder, the Wounded Healer Reflection Guide and the 5-minute breathwork session are both available for you at kamararose.com/resources. If you have 1 minute, it would be super appreciated if you rate and review this podcast in iTunes. And please share this conversation with your friends, family, and colleagues. Everyday Changemakers is a production of yours truly in collaboration with markmedia.org.